G'day ladies and gents, and welcome back to Star Citizen with Mags. Yes, it has been a while, 8 months since my last Star Citizen video, and really about a year since I was sort of covering this closely, and that gap's not by accident. However, I figured it was time to jump back in and actually have a poke around and see how things are going. This is currently Alpha 3.8, which dropped in December 2019. And our ship for this little flyout is the C8 Pisces. It's a small exploration shuttle that comes with the Carrack exploration ship, which isn't in game yet, but is due to come out either in a mini patch towards the end of this major patch or in the next one. So it's not far off, thankfully. A lot of people have been waiting for this one a long time. I actually really like this ship. It's got good range, it's fast, it's nimble, it's got seats for 3 people. The other 2 don't really have any function within the Pisces, it's just passengers. And it's also got room for about 4 units worth of cargo, 2 on each side, while also being fairly quick in quantum and fairly well armed for a ship this small. It's got spots or hard points for 4 guns. They're only S1s, but they're gimbaled. The standard Pisces, which is what I'm in now, comes with only 2 as standard, and there is a premium version that you can get that comes with 4 as standard. But you can fit the extra 2 to the standard version without an issue, so I'm not too fussed about it. It's not something that I'm planning on going into combat in, but it's nice to know that you can actually put a reasonable amount of teeth for something this size. And I have been told that it will take a fairly substantial shield upgrade that can actually make it quite a durable little ship. Anyways, passing around, this is the space station in orbit directly over New Babbage. Relatively new design, I haven't seen this one at all. It's a pretty nice looking station for the most part. I have no idea whether or not it's possible to dock with it at this point in time. I didn't stop to find out. My interest lies in the city down below. Now, a couple of things. This particular video is essentially going to be me running off some of my impressions of Star Citizen, having come back to it after about an 8-month to a year break. My last impressions, I wasn't happy with some of the stuff that they're doing with the new flight model and the heating. The flight model is now pretty much a year old. I will say that the heating issues that I was complaining about in my last video seem to have been mostly addressed. The systems now act in a more logical fashion rather than cooking itself out of the factory all the time, so this is good. I will also say that I am not fond of the flight control systems. Although they're not new now, the way that they've changed the flight controls from the original way that Star Citizen used to control, which was just like every single other space flight simulator out there, to this new system where you have both a throttle, a speed limiter, and then you've got to control and go into decoupled mode in order to be able to maintain speed. Frankly, it is the silliest and worst control scheme that I've come across in my probably 30 years of playing spaceflight simulators. I mean, my time playing spaceflight sims goes all the way back to the original Elite on the Amiga 500. Although I didn't get to play it brand new, it wasn't particularly old back when I got to play it. But yeah, that's a whole other rant for a whole other time, because quite frankly there is a full video on me just ragging on this flight control system, and honestly the horribly outdated menu system for actually configuring the controls, and all the problems with configuring and binding the controls and getting them set up. Yeah, there's a whole other video here that probably will be coming at some point in the future, but let's not do that today. I want to go and have a look at a nice city and show it off, because quite frankly, this is really well done. Now, this is New Babbage, and we can see it's starting to come up over the horizon and through the clouds now. Currently, it is encased in a hellish little storm. Now, the landing zones for New Babbage don't currently work. They will be made available in the next patch, as I understand it. The landing zone itself is functional, it's just that the rest of the city components, or large amounts of the city, is still in the process of being worked on, but they wanted to put the planet in so people could have a fly around it. However, there's still quite a lot to see here, including a hidden Christmas tree, which we'll be taking a look at in just a moment. First things first, however, SIG finally learnt from Lawville. People like flying stupidly close to buildings and don't like giant glowing "you cannot cross this line" no-fly zones. So they've gotten rid of those. There is a thin shield boundary, I suppose you could define it as, very close to the surface of any of the buildings, and if you collide with that, you essentially get destroyed. But otherwise, you can fly straight through this city, nick in between all the buildings, and do pretty much what you want. You can also land pretty much everywhere. There are functional landing zones on the top of the buildings, and I'll actually be finishing this particular recording off on one of them. And there's actually a little interesting thing there as well that, well, I'll show you when we get to it, but I didn't realise until I'd actually landed there. But just doing a lap around the city, as you can see, the detail here is actually really good, and as I said, you can go all the way down to ground level and pretty much land wherever you want. Now, in the long term, will there be restrictions on where you can actually put your ships down in the city? I want to say yes, part of me hopes not. I'm not actually sure how they're going to do this one because, as I said, as you'll see in a moment, some of the tops of the buildings are clearly designed to be landing zones, and not just for small ships, for quite large ships that are designed to carry vehicles. Now, if you've got landing zones built on the top of cities like that, you don't actually need the spaceport. So what I'm assuming they're going to do is allow you to land almost anywhere. But for the most part, your job elements are going to be linked directly to the spaceport. So mining, cargo hauling, handing in of bounties, anything military related, anything along those lines, the offices for all of those will be at the spaceport, so you will have to go to the spaceport in order to be able to deliver cargo, pick up new cargo, hand in your bounties, whatever else. And that forces you to go there. If you're coming through just to pick somebody up, or you happen to have a living quarters inside of the city, well, then you'll use the building landing sites to potentially leave, or you'll fly directly to whoever you're trying to pick up and just pick them up. So I'm assuming that's something like what they're going to do. Now, this was my first time on the surface of New Babbage, and I'm spinning around here just trying to get contrast on the ice elements on the HUD. That's actually why I'm walking up to the ship at the moment. I'm trying to use the darkness so I can get a good look at the ice particles forming on the outside of the visor. The effect is actually really, really nicely done. I'm not sure how well this is going to come through on YouTube, but this looks like chunks of ice on the outside of a windshield. It looks exactly like what I would expect it to look like. The effect is actually quite impressive. And from there I was just having a little bit of a run down. I just picked a mountain that was sort of down towards what looks like an industrial area on the edge of the frozen lake, but on the outskirts of the city, just so I could have a look at the city and look down on various parts of it. So this area is sort of, I mean, I suppose if you think about it in terms of a modern city, it would be almost a bit of parkland on the outskirts, but before you start going into the Bay or industrial area. So you can see there's more structures down there, and the core of the city just being in the background. This was pretty cool. I liked this, and this was just my first test for landing on New Babbage near the city, and there is no restrictions, no warnings, nothing popped up to prevent me from coming here, which was great. So from here, back into the ship, and I decided to go a little bit further in, and that's when I found the Christmas... Well, I was going to say Christmas tree, but I guess Christmas area is the better description. In the center of the city of New Babbage is the Microtech building, and funnily enough, the planet itself is called Microtech, for those that are unaware. It's a corporate-controlled planet. It's one of only a handful inside of the UAE that are corporate-controlled, and Microtech are the makers of the Mobiglass, so the personal PDA and system that you use for all your navigation, inventory management, and everything else. So I was just sort of exploring and seeing how close I can actually get to the Microtech building and seeing how close I can get to the buildings. And as you can see, there's nothing stopping me from coming down here. And as I was nicking down, I did sort of see there's a bit of a cave structure or some kind of glow going on ahead in the center. So I was just going to fly in here, do a bit of a zoom around and fly back out, or see whether or not I get destroyed. I probably could have gone straight in and landed inside the zone, but I didn't.
Proximity alert. Landing gear deployed. Deck proximity alert. Landing complete.
And see, a UI to tell me exactly what the terrain level underneath the spacecraft is would be really, really, really nice. A UI element like that, so I know that I'm going to be landing at a 45-degree angle. But that's alright. Ship is powered down. And this is the cave that I spotted from the front of the spacecraft. And if hadn't come down here, I would never have known that this was here. And this is directly in the center of the Microtech building, in the center of New Babbage. There's just a cave. That when you go inside, there's a fire and a Christmas tree and a pile of presents. And yes, the first thing I did is go through to see whether or not I could actually pick any of the presents up, whether or not that was an option. Sadly, it's not. But, yeah, just a cool little Christmassy area that Sig hid inside the cave. Upside down Christmas tree or a Christmas palm tree, depending on how you want to look at it. A couple of traditional pines. Nice presents all over the place. It's actually quite a Christmassy looking area, and just a spot that you can go and find, with a nice fire burning inside of it, and a little snowman who, honestly, that close to the fire should probably be melting, but anyways. This is just one of the Easter eggs I've found around the city of New Babbage at this point. I have absolutely no doubt there are more. With a city this size, and pretty much unrestricted access to all of it, there's going to be more hidden in here, but it's going to take time to search through it. And you've probably only got a limited window to actually search through it, because a lot of the Easter eggs are probably going to vanish, both once the holiday season ends, if they happen to be holiday related, otherwise with the next patch, once core components for New Babbage actually start coming online, such as the spaceport and the city areas themselves. So our last stop is one of the other Microtech buildings, this one with the actual Microtech sign on the side of it, on the outskirts of the city. I don't really know which way to define it. I suppose this would be the south side, I think, from orbit. Again, we need a compass in place to be able to work that kind of stuff out. But this one has a landing zone. Now, I was a little bit cautious bringing this down to actually land, because I wasn't entirely sure whether or not the landing zone would completely work, or whether or not it would clip through it, or whether or not my ship would explode on contact, but as it turned out, the landing worked perfectly fine. And it wasn't until I completed the landing that I realized the actual scale of this particular landing pad. It's one thing to see it from the air, but another thing entirely to actually exit a ship, or to more to the point, see a ship on it and actually look around it. This landing pad is friggin' huge. This is large enough that I don't think there's a ship in Star Citizen at the moment that you wouldn't be able to actually land on it. It's massive. My Pisces looks tiny by comparison, and that's when I noticed the two doors. Now, the one on the right is obviously the interesting one in the first place, because that's an elevator and it has a working button, which surprised me when it first opened. I wasn't actually expecting that to happen. Now, inside of the elevator, there's nothing else you can do here. It's just the elevator. The back doors don't open up, the buttons inside of the room don't function, but clearly this is set up so that there will be a way to enter the building interior at some point in the future. Now, the second thing that was interesting on top of this building, and I'm sorry for the little jump cut that's going to pop up just here, I actually had to step out of the room for a second, but it was this door. Now, this door isn't interactable at the moment, but this is an access point for a garage, and it's the appropriate size to fit something the size of an APC out. Now, when you consider the size of this landing pad is large enough that you could land a character on top of it, and you could spawn a ground vehicle inside of that hangar and drive it in. This building and the landing pads like it all around the city are set up with the idea that you will be able to operate missions and essentially work out of these buildings, loading up both ground vehicles, potentially other aircraft, into spacecraft, and be able to fly out. I don't think they'll allow you to do cargo, but you'll be able to run missions or operate missions out of here and potentially live. This is really, really impressive, and it's going to take me a long time to actually explore all of this city. As you can see, there is a hell of a lot of it, but this was incredibly impressive to run back into on my return to Star Citizen. That and, well, the other areas that the game has clearly improved. Stability is better. I am getting less bugs. Frame rate overall is improved, although there are a couple of areas where frames do still get dropped, but it is an alpha and it hasn't an optimization pass, so it's clearly functioning better than it was previously. Visually, the Planetech 4 looks incredible. Having a browse through the missions, there's clearly a lot more of them. There's a lot more to do inside of the actual universe at this point, so I'm looking forward to digging through all of that. There's actually quite a lot I would like to cover in Star Citizen and actually go through in 2020. Now, I'm not entirely sure how this is going to fit into the new schedule that I'm setting for myself, but this is definitely something that I want to add more to on the channel. And I'm going to have a couple of critiques to put through as well, because as I said earlier on, the control menus for binding controls are woefully out of date and kind of terrible, and, well, the control system itself isn't great either. But anyways, ladies and gents, hope you enjoyed this video, and thank you very much for watching. Star Citizen is going to return in the very near future to the channel, and until next time, remember to click like if you did, share and subscribe if you'd like to see more, and as always, take care.